Welcome to Section 5.3, Part 1. This is the 55th session of the ISACA CISA exam prep series. In this session, we'll cover the foundations of identity and access management. We'll answer several questions. What is identity and access management, and why does it matter? How do authentication, authorization, and accountability fit together? What is zero trust? How do you protect powerful accounts? And what are the main models for granting access? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because identity is the new front door. Picture a hospital where a doctor, a nurse, and a billing clerk all log in. Each needs different access, and none should see everything. Get this wrong, and a single stolen password opens every room. As an auditor, you confirm the right people get the right access, and nobody keeps it too long. So what is identity and access management? Call it IAM for short. It's the policies, processes, and technology that manage who can access what. Its goal is simple. Make sure each person gets only the access they need, exactly when they need it, with little hassle. Think of it in 4 groups. Authentication services prove who you are. Authorization services decide what you can do. User management handles creating and removing accounts. And a central repository stores all the identities. Why invest in IAM? Several payoffs. It improves compliance because you can prove who accessed what. It strengthens security by adding layers beyond the single password. It supports digital transformation without slowing users down. It boosts productivity through single sign-on. And it makes managing access far easier across tangled setups such as the cloud. How does an identity move through its life? Through a clear cycle. First, enrollment, where you create the account. Second, role determination, where you decide what the person does. Remember, a role guides access, but the role itself holds no permissions. Third, provisioning, where you grant the actual access levels. Fourth, review and update, as roles change over time. Watch for privilege creep here, where access piles up. And fifth, deprovisioning, where you remove access when someone leaves. That last step stops former staff from keeping a key to the building. Now, the engine room. How do authentication, authorization, and accountability connect? Start with 2 terms. A subject is an active entity, like a user or a process. An object is a passive resource the subject wants. The flow goes in order. First, the subject is identified, then authenticated to prove it's genuine. Then it's authorized to act on the object. And the whole thing is tracked for accountability. Let's take authentication first. It proves you are who you claim to be. There are many methods. A password is something you know, simple but weak. Multi-factor authentication demands 2 or more factors. Adaptive authentication raises the bar when the risk looks higher. Token-based authentication issues an encrypted string after one login. Certificate-based authentication relies on digital certificates. Directory-based authentication checks credentials against a central store. And the smart card carries a chip for added functions. A special case worth its own moment. What is single sign-on? It lets a user log in once and reach many applications. One set of credentials opens every configured door. The benefits are real. Fewer passwords, so users pick stronger ones. Easier administration and fewer password resets. But there's a catch. Single sign-on is a single point of failure. If that one login falls, the attacker reaches everything. That's why it's paired with strong authentication. Next, authorization. What does it decide? What a proven user is actually allowed to do. 3 rules shape it: separation of duties, plus least privilege and need to know. It comes in 2 grains. Coarse-grained authorization makes a broad yes or no call on access. Fine-grained authorization goes deeper, restricting actions by detailed conditions. Behind the scenes, access control lists do the work. A list names who can use a resource and how. When someone changes jobs and old rights linger, that's a separation of duties problem. Where does this administration live? It can be centralized or decentralized. A decentralized setup is faster and closer to the local site, but it risks inconsistent standards and weaker oversight. Now the third A, accountability. What does it give you? A record of who did what. Every step from login to action should be logged. Those logs support non-repudiation, deterrence, and legal action. To check accountability, you look for things like no shared passwords. You confirm default admin accounts are removed. And you check that service accounts can't log in interactively. Let's talk about a modern mindset. What is Zero Trust architecture? It's built on one phrase: never trust, always verify. Every request is authenticated and authorized before access. Every time. Location grants no trust on its own. Access is per session and based on least privilege. The system constantly monitors the security posture of every device. To do it well, segment the network, patch devices fast, and use strong multi-factor authentication. Zero Trust pairs naturally with IAM because everything hinges on identity. Some accounts are more dangerous than others. What is Privileged Access Management? Call it PAM. It controls the elevated accounts that can bypass security. Think administrator accounts, service accounts, and emergency break glass accounts. These are the keys to the kingdom, so they need special care. PAM shrinks the attack surface and enforces least privilege. It monitors and logs every privileged session. The best practices are clear. Track every privileged account. Grant elevated access only temporarily when needed. Vault the credentials, automate the process, and limit lateral movement. A few supporting pieces tie this together. What is a directory service? It's the database of users and resources, storing names and credentials. Best practices include least privilege, changing default passwords, and regular monitoring. What is identity governance and administration? It's a layer on top of IAM that tracks user activity for compliance. Administration handles the day-to-day mechanics, like provisioning. Governance handles oversight, like access reviews and reporting. And what is identity as a service? It's IAM delivered from the cloud on a subscription. It cuts cost and scales easily. But it depends on the internet and hands sensitive data to a provider. Let's get concrete about permissions. What is a system access permission? It's the right to act on a resource, like reading or deleting a file. Access should follow need to know and least privilege. Picture access in 4 layers: network, platform, database, and application. Each layer adds more control and granularity. Owners give written authorization, and access is reviewed regularly. A good trick is to tie those reviews to human resources events, so a transfer updates access on the spot. So how is access actually granted? Through different models. Mandatory access control is rigid, set by an administrator for the most sensitive environments. Discretionary access control lets the data owner decide who gets in. Rule-based access control applies the same predefined rules to everyone, like a firewall. Role-based access control grants rights based on a person's role, and it's the common standard. Attribute-based access control uses traits like department or location. And policy-based access control blends roles with policy statements. One last area. How do you handle outside parties? Carefully, with controls agreed before access is granted. Run a risk assessment first. Consider what they touch, how, and from where. Put it all in a signed agreement, and keep the right to audit. Treat customers and third parties with the same discipline. And remember, returning or destroying confidential data at the end is genuinely hard. So let's bring it together. IAM gives the right people the right access at the right time. Authentication proves identity. Authorization sets permissions. Accountability tracks it all. Zero Trust verifies everything, and PAM guards the powerful accounts. Access models, from mandatory to role-based, decide who gets in. And outside parties need controls before they ever connect. Lock down identity, and you've secured the front door. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on rucloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.